With the reveals at TennoCon showing the ongoing progress of Soulframe, it seemed only fitting to finally give it a try. Soulframe is still in alpha, or even pre-alpha, so they're very much in an early development and feedback stage. Still, it's accessible, playable, and includes AAA priced founders packs. I went into Soulframe live on stream, across 2 streams, with the goal of only letting the game tell me how to play the game. Advice in chat was strictly prohibited, certainly advice on things the game simply never explains. After all, it's a lot harder to see the game for how it presents itself when clouded by others' suggestions and experience. So no, this was a blind opener to Soulframe, trailers aside. Visually, Soulframe is absolutely stunning. The atmosphere is thick and rich with detail, gorgeous lighting, and a wealth of strongly themed visual variety. I-core spewing constructs, full-face heavy helmets, and a harsh sense of regime which defines the ode. This contrasts with the woodland critters, the homely half-natural cottage, the old ways vibes of the Envoy, and those connected to them. These visuals connect with a soundscape to match, from voices to ambience to music. As always, these are the fortes of digital extremes, and Soulframe delivers another rich audio-visual experience. Yet video games are more than sights and sounds. Gameplay, story, interaction, choices, combat, loot, leveling, and progression all must come in too. After the short introduction to who you may be, Soulframe has you select a pact, a class by another name, and indeed on picking one to try out, I was introduced to 3 magical abilities and 3 trappings, a bow, a brooch, and a flute. The bow is obvious, it's a bow, and the flute was demonstrated just moments prior to pact selection. The brooch though is the first curious sticking point. The Rose's Bodkin, described as delicate but sharp, with the description using how it'd fare when thrown. Displayed immediately below the bow, placed as the secondary item on the list, this gives me the impression that it's a thrown secondary weapon. But that's not all. After a short testing sequence to allow us to try out the pact, Soulframe then reveals our Nightfold tent and guides the player to don a talisman. That talisman is the brooch. Sure. Makes enough sense then. We try out the pact with the primary weapon and then are tutorialed into equipping the secondary weapon. This all makes sense. Over the next 6 hours, I never figured out how to throw the sharp petal talisman, though I did discover without prompt how to throw a sword. If you're familiar with Soulframe, you might be itching to rush to the comments, but don't worry, I've looked it up now. The talisman's description and significance in the tutorial introduction is all a trick. It is not a thrown weapon, nor a weapon at all, but merely a cosmetic with a stat boost. This is also DE's forte, certainly in older Warframe days, of introducing things in an unclear or even incorrect fashion, while failing to introduce other major mechanics at all. Soulframe so far has not learned the lessons around teaching lessons. It also has the questionable choice of introducing the player to the arsenal fully stacked with options to consider before real gameplay has even begun. The arsenal interface includes what appears to be 7 equipment slots, a stat rebalancer, a pact manager, and a grouped option leading to perk trees for each class of weapon. This is surrounded by 2 currencies and 8 character stats with little to no explanation for each. Even as someone familiar with games like this, and with DE's designs, that's a lot to take in before even embarking in the main game world. It's this interface that tricked me into believing a semi-cosmetic was a thrown weapon. Exiting out from this otherworldly tent and embarking on adventure, we're swiftly introduced to our foes. No parley or preparation, immediate combat a stone's throw from one's home. Perhaps a little arcadey, but it gets the point across quickly enough. These are not friends, and not interested in anything but your destruction. I am always a fan of moments in games which teach you how the world works, while not acting like it's teaching you. Soulframe has a few of these, but then also breaks those apparent lessons often. Like seeing something on the ground with a glow that shouts, "Hey, loot me, interact with me, I'm not scenery," but you can't loot it. Turns out I had max capacity on that item, and the game didn't feel it necessary to explain. When Soulframe naturally introduces you to the way the world and game works, these diegetic lessons, it's great. At its current stage, those are the minority experience. A couple other conspicuously unexplained points of interest later, we're shown what might be some kind of boss. And quite as soon as we're introduced, it's gone. Rather than summarise, I'm going to show you how that went. What spear blights the world tree? I was right. I'm not qualified to use this channel. Good to know. Press P to inspect. Inspect what precisely? None your business? What? I'm sorry, huh? What do you mean press P to inspect and then just suddenly it's Nonya? That's gotta be a player, right? Yeah, these... Sure, alright, we're just gonna spontaneously create multiplayer in front of me and that's the first thing I see. None your business. You absolute blighter of a world. Okay. Sometimes Soulframe, for better or for worse, does the last thing you'd expect. If you want to see the full, unedited experiences I had in these newbie hours, you can check out the links to the 2 VODs in the description below this video. Now, most foes didn't zap away, so let's talk fighting. Soulframe's combat, at least at this very early stage, feels engaging and rewarding. Enemies are not complete pushovers, but also not immovable bulwarks of hit points. Again, in classic DE fashion, 2 different enemies of the same level will be of vastly different threats and capabilities, so it is not an adequate nor complete identifier of difficulty. Still, levels aside, ranged combat feels very satisfying, especially on discovering how to use the additional ranged features like a heavy attack. Tell me that wasn't satisfying. Discovering these proved a little more problematic. Feature introductions sometimes bugged out, or other times suddenly introduced the mechanic while I was preoccupied processing the far more pressing revelation of traps hanging from the ceiling. Looking back at the footage, it's easy to see the message saying, "Hey, look, you can heavy attack," and figure that should be its introduction. Yet in the moment, my focus is decidedly elsewhere, and specifically because the game told me to look there. Before I get reprieve from that focus, the button hit vanishes, never to be seen again. Melee combat is different. It has a classic attack, heavy attack, block and parry system, which bears distinct resemblance to Duviri combat in Warframe. Yes, it's almost like they were made by the same company, I know. In combat, this did lead to some very awkward interactions, which were more of me fighting the game mechanics rather than fighting the enemies. Looking one way, trying to set up a block and parry, only to have the character swing around to attack a different foe entirely, exposing oneself to an attack from behind. That felt rough, and like something to work around rather than work with. The stealth archer conundrum rears its head here, for why risk being in the middle of a group and having attacks jump to the wrong nearby target, when arrows from afar make for a very effective one-sided takedown. What was that? What was that? That's pathetic. Could I do this the entire time? Miss? Yeah. You sure can. I've not yet had opportunity to dabble in the spirit and magic side, so that'll have to wait for another time. Still, sticking to the ranged combat is plenty good with me, as I do prefer taking a ranged approach in many games. Now as for quests, the path to those quests is clear enough. Load a fable or objective in your journal and follow the bird. It's a waypoint system with a more in-world effect. This does mean actual spoken or written directions are otherwise missing. In the first quest, to meet with a scribe, I was reminded just prior by the game of a mechanic to reveal objects of interest. Moments later, I'm in a tower with a ghost asking for a quill. Surely one of the many floors and chests will have it, seeing as he's giving me no other direction, and this revelation ability will let me find it. Nope, follow the bird. The quill was somewhere else entirely. Just follow the bird when running fables and stories. You can always trust the bird. I don't particularly feel like I want to rely on the burb, but... yeah, I was correct to not rely on the burb. I think the burb went into the ground. I might be wrong there. Okay, well, let's just kind of waddle in this direction, and then we get stuck, and then, hoi, hoi, hoi. Don't think I did it right. Yeah, the bird isn't perfect. These things happen in a pre-alpha, so I won't dwell on that too much. The bird is not... Actually, the bird might show me a way in. Go on. Let's try it. Trust the bird. Look, this one was definitely not my fault. I promise you, it caused 0 psychic damage to anyone who saw the solution sooner. Oh no! Oh no! No! Nope, no damage at all. Soulframe gives you a lot of space to just roam and explore. The world really will not hold your hand or railroad you. Go for a wander, grab the loot, take down weirdly frequent roaming parties that might seem to spawn behind you at times. This does occasionally lead to some curious conflicts of information. Hello? Alright, let's just take this and follow the bird. I'm sure nothing will go wrong. Yeah, okay, I might have let that bit go on just a little, rather than immediately scour the journal. I did give the helm quite a trip. Eventually, that went to the correct location. We resumed the original quest, cleansed the stag in a dramatic 2-stage boss fight, and in the next stream, took on the most challenging feature of them all. I ran out of inventory space. Resources stack limitlessly, but weapon drops from enemies come pre-built with some rolls on their stats and features. This meant breaking off from the gameplay to manage that inventory and start assessing what was loot and what was scrap. Through comparisons and scouring the stats of each item, I found that the star rating shown in the inventory is also shown in-world when looting items, but it's translated into craft work which is never actually explained. Only on comparing items did I find that correlation myself. Then in scrapping weapons, it wasn't clear what I would get, what I would use that for, or really how best to make such decisions. Fiddling with an inventory with a lack of practical information has always been, and continues to be, a sticking point in experiencing a game. I'm not playing at that moment, just deciphering what trash I'd picked up disguised as a reward. Aside from cleaning out the scrap, there's the upgrading process. Stepping into the arsenal with some more loot in Minnow's grasp, I could begin to explore enhancing weapons with runes and totems. While the ever-prevalent use of red, green and blue themes was obvious, how they all interact was not. Easy to click on, but a lot harder to click with. Still, the typical avenues of adding power-ups, both passive and active, to get more from a weapon are there. Between the leveling, weapon choices, perk progression, rune acquisition and totem emplacement, there does seem to be considerable room to explore builds and variety. Indeed, it'll take many hours to truly explore all of that side of Soulframe before even getting into using other pacts. In case it's not clear, that's a good thing. It may be poorly or absent explanation in parts, but variety and depth is definitely a strong positive here. Overall, Soulframe is shaping up to be a very Digital Extremes game. It's not Warframe at all, and I both respect and agree with the sentiment that it should avoid becoming Warframe. That's not to fault Warframe, but to distinguish from it. Soulframe's story, atmosphere and combat all hit very differently to Warframe, allowing it to give a unique experience. All the while, the mechanical and fundamental similarities present mean going from one game to the other is not a jarring experience at all. They have done well at Digital Extremes, and I am excited to see how Soulframe is developed from here. Plus, to see what else I've yet to experience in its current alpha state. I have my reservations on the way it prices packs and arcs, especially while still in an alpha like it is. I respect DE have figured out a viable business model, but I don't judge that camel solely based on monetary success. Still, if the lessons are things like the teacher quest and decades of MMOs and RPGs improving inventory management can be brought to Soulframe, it's going to be in an amazing spot. The less the player needs to go to a wiki or spreadsheet, the less they need to cross-reference stats and feature guides, rather than exploring the next zone, the better. For those of you who don't want to process 2,000 words of review, the simple answer to the question of would I recommend trying Soulframe out? Yes. Yes I would. And I recommend using a bow. That's all from me on Soulframe for now. We'll be back to Warframe in the next videos, but as always, sift your loot, watch squirrels sploot, and fight well, Envoy.